if there is one thing I am really good at, it is transitioning out of something that is not working into something that is better for me. And so I was thinking about this a little bit today because I know there's a lot of people who struggle when they're feeling stuck or feeling like they don't know how to get out of an uncomfortable situation. And they know that they are ready for a change, but they don't know how to get to the next level. So today we're going to talk about the pivot and my 3 favorite ways to take you from stuck to thriving fast. So when I say the word pivot, if you're not like a sports fan or an engineer, that might be a word that you're not really familiar with. But honestly, when you think about a pivot, I just want you to think about like having one foot in one position and kind of turning around. So I'm in a chair right now that's like a swivel chair. So I could keep one foot planted and turn one direction or another and still be kind of in my same position. Now, a pivot in your life can be the same way. You are staying grounded and rooted in who you are, your core values, your belief system, what matters to you, but you are transitioning in one direction or another, just kind of exploring and maybe going in a direction that's a little bit different than where you've been. I think the 30s, the 40s, and certainly the 50s are a perfect time for pivot because you have so much experience, so much knowledge, so much wisdom, so many contacts, and all of these can help you move into the right direction that is best for you at this time in your life. But so a lot of people, unfortunately though, when they're in that 30s, 40s, 50s range, they have a lot of things to lose. You maybe have a mortgage and a car payment. You've built up some time on your job. And so it's natural that you might be feeling a little bit worried about that transition or what that could look like or what that should look like. But the truth of the matter is, you never want to focus all of your energy on what you're going to lose by transitioning, because in general, that desire for change is usually coming from the possibility and the potential of what's on the other side. Now, like I said, I am no stranger to pivots and full out complete changes, of course. I know how to do it. I've done it in the past. While I am a coach and a consultant, an entrepreneur, an online business owner, my first official career was as a hairdresser. I worked as a hairdresser after I left college. I went to college for a year and thought, you know what, this is not working for me. I became a hairdresser. I worked that job for several years and put myself back through college. I got an associate degree in radiography. So I was an x-ray tech, the person that takes your ultrasounds or your mammogram. So I worked that job for about a dozen years, transitioning through different roles, working in immediate cares and hospitals in different settings. But then I ultimately decided, hey, you know what? I think there's more to this. There's more that I want to do. There's more for me. And that's when I went back to college, finished my bachelor's and then my master's degree, and got into the mental health space. And that is what has kind of set me up for this next journey. And honestly, I also call this like a full circle moment, because initially when I went to college at Ball State years and years ago, I was going for psychology. So the fact that I came back around to this same topic makes perfect sense to me, but I just took the scenic route. And for some of us who had to kind of do what needed to be done, we had to just figure things out. Maybe life threw us a curveball and we kind of got off track of our dreams. Your 40s, your 50s is the perfect time to actually get back on track. So you're not too old. You don't have to give up. You don't have to settle. You don't have to tolerate. You absolutely can pivot. And here are some things that I want you to consider, things that I've done in the past and things that I think will really help you moving forward. Number 1, I want you to get crystal clear on hearing your own voice. Now, this is a challenge for a lot of people, especially if you happen to be a wife or a mother or a sister or a daughter who is, really committed to supporting your family, especially if you have like a leadership position in your community or in your church or in your job. You know that people are looking at you. You are constantly, organically, taking into consideration everybody else's wants and needs and desires. The problem with that is it can actually drown out your own voice. And your voice is what is most important in this moment, is hearing your own voice. What do you really want? Now, for some of you, just me saying that has made you feel all types of things, right? You're already thinking like, oh, that's so selfish. I can't be that selfish. I have too many people dependent on me. Oh, that would be nice, but that can't be me. Yes, it can, sis. Yes, it can. The key here is not that you're going to suddenly ignore other people's opinions. It's not that you're going to suddenly tell everybody, screw it, I'm having a midlife crisis and I'm out of here to have my eat, pray, love moment. It's just about hearing your own voice, okay? Getting clear about that. Because once you get clear about that, you can decide what you actually want to do. It's not that nobody else's opinions matters. It's just that yours does too. And for a lot of us, especially moms and wives who care so much about our families, we put everybody else's stuff above ours as if ours somehow doesn't have any value. And I want you to stop doing that. So if you haven't been listening to your own voice for a while, you might be thinking like, I don't have a voice. I don't know what I want. I don't want anything. I don't even know where to start. That's okay. This is a part of the process, okay? First thing I want you to do is spend some time journaling, right? If you don't know, like I love a good completely empty journal where I can just write. But if you're not exactly sure, using some journal prompts can help you as well. I'm gonna leave a link below this video that gives you some questions that you can use to kind of get started in your journaling process, and give yourself time, 5-10 minutes a day, to just sit in quiet with a pretty pen and a notebook and actually work your way through this journal. You do not have to stay stagnant just because you're not exactly sure what you want. Not knowing what you want isn't an excuse to just go ahead and follow what other people want. It's a great reason though to settle down and hear your own voice, and journaling is a great way to start with that. Now, sometimes I hear people who struggle to know their own voice because they have heard the voices of other people, right? So other people are telling them what they should do or what they could do. And so in that instance, it's not like you want to ignore other people's ideas, but really sit with when you get like a suggestion or a strategy or a word from someone else, sit with that. Pray about it. Think about whether or not that's actually what you want. Just because somebody's giving you good advice or a good suggestion doesn't mean it's the right advice or a God suggestion. So just because somebody wants to speak into you doesn't mean that you have to take that and run with it. It is perfectly okay to listen to your voice. And the key here is once you hear your own voice and you start listening to your own voice, you'll start trusting yourself again. And that is an incredible confidence boost for whatever is coming next for you in your transition or your pivot. Now, the second step is one that you might be surprised about, because as a coach and a consultant, I'm always in the present and moving forward. I don't spend a lot of time focused on the past because we have no power back there. We can't change anything that happened. We can't make anything different than it is. Our power is in the now. Our power is right here today, what we choose and how we use that to move ourselves forward. But I do like to look to the past to look at my wins. Here's what I mean by that. As you're sitting here today, you're facing a transition, a pivot. Maybe you've been laid off, or maybe you are just kind of getting restless and you're considering some other options. Chances are one of the first things that will happen to you is you will start thinking about every single thing that could go wrong. You will start thinking about every time you saw somebody who failed. Every bad thing will pop into your mind that will bring up all this fear and all this scarcity and all this lack, okay? That is not the position that you want to be in when you're getting ready to pivot or transition into something new. So what I want you to do is stop for a moment and think. Chances are, if you're my age, and I'm 45 when I'm recording this, you have been through some bad days. You have been through some times where you thought, I don't know how I'm going to turn this around. I don't know where I am going to go with this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. You have been through some stuff. You've also survived all of that stuff. Every time you thought you weren't going to survive, every time you thought you weren't going to make it, every time you thought you weren't going to get through, you did. So you've had some successes, and chances are you've also had some pretty significant wins. You've had some promotions. You've had some times when you found the solution that nobody else could find. You've had some times when you surprised yourself, right? You have a resume, but chances are your resume ain't even up to date. So you don't even really know how bad you really are. So this is your opportunity to stop and reflect about what you did that makes you that girl today. Right? And when you do that, it's going to give you that boost of confidence to remind you that whatever might be coming, whether it's a pivot, a transition, or a flat out complete change, you can handle it. Don't use your past to confine you to being stuck. Use that as a reminder that whatever you want is possible for you. And then last, but certainly not least, I want you to take inspired action. Now, here's what I mean by inspired action. When you get ready to do something new or different, a lot of times you're not exactly sure where to start. But if you have done some reflection, if you've gotten clear on your own voice, there will become a moment where you're like, I wonder if I should, go this direction, or, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a while. I should check on them. When you do that, that is inspired action. Something that comes from a moment or a thought that feels like maybe it's the right thing to do, you go that direction. I don't want you to force yourself into doing, like I've got to go through every single person in my Rolodex. No, but you might look at your phone contact list and say like, oh, that's a name I haven't seen in a while. That name jumps out at me. Go ahead and call that person or text that person or send that person an email. We sometimes will call things a coincidence. I like to call them synchronicities. And that means that our, path, our ideas, our mindset is really synchronizing with God's ideas for us. And when we take inspired action in those synchronicities, things can happen. Here's an example, like from my own life. So I might be getting ready to come home. I'm, run a bunch of errands. I'm tired, and I've got a couple different directions I can go. Sometimes I'll put the GPS on and let the GPS tell me where to go because I don't even want to think about which way I'm turning. Other times I'll just kind of stop for a second and think like, oh, I could go this way. And on my way home, I passed the bank and realized, oh yeah, I needed to stop and grab cash for the field trip for the kids. So now, because I went this direction, I can grab that cash from the ATM, and I don't have to make another, early morning run to the ATM to get that cash for the field trip, because I listened to my voice and I followed the inspired action that said this direction's better than the other one. Now, that's just like a super small reason. That's just like a super small example. But you can have the same thing that happens where you have somebody that pops into your mind and you send them a text message and they're like, oh girl, I was just talking about you to my friend who is, looking to have somebody redo her basement. And you are a person who redoes, who is decorating basements, right? And you're like, oh, absolutely. I would love some new clients. Or I was just thinking about offering those services to somebody else. When you get into the habit of hearing your own voice and taking those inspired actions, you will find that sometimes the pivot will just present itself clearly for you, and you won't even have to work that hard to get it. Very often we get into the habit of just discounting things as coincidence, and we just kind of ignore them and, oh, that was funny. It's funny how that happened. But when you actually allow yourself that time to reflect on how those synchronicities have created an opportunity for you, again, it gives you that confidence boost that you need to really trust yourself and trust that the path will present itself. Very often when we're getting ready to pivot or change, we are not going to have every single step lined out for us. We might see step 1, but we don't know step 2, 3, 4, 10, 12, or 15, right? So you've got to have confidence and trust the process. And that happens every time you take that inspired actions and it works out well for you. Now, that doesn't mean that every single time you take an inspired action, it's going to be $1 million solution that comes drop down in your lap. But every time you do it, you feel a little bit stronger, you feel a little bit more sure, a little bit more secure, and it's preparing you for all the success that you desire. Remember that no matter what your age, you are not too late. If there's still breath in your body and a mind in your head, you remember that it is not too late for you to have exactly the life you desire. And I am so happy to be here to cheer you on. If this video was helpful for you, do me a favor and make sure that you subscribe and drop a comment and let me know which one of these tips you're going to put into play today.